Once more, people and children of the Most High God, thank you so much for joining me today as we continue on episode 3 of the people of faith and the desire for riches. Today we look into the theme, because you loved the world and the things in it. Now, people have done a lot of abhorrent, abominable, and despicable things, all in the name of money. The woman in the Middle East who let a man excrete in her mouth for money, something quite detestable. I'm sorry to mention that, but it's just one of the things that become so indicative of the destructive and foolish thing it is to pursue money. The hundreds of celebrities in America who have sold their souls to the devil for the riches and maintain the rituals of secret societies by doing unnatural things like sleeping with other men. We've heard about these things. You've seen these things happen, and some people have broken out of this by God's grace and have rendered their testimony of the things that they had seen happen in these secret societies. What about the incident we've heard of in South Africa in the past? This was some 2 years ago or so, where people were beginning to sell their fingers, pinkies, toes for wealth. Others harvesting young children's organs for a couple of thousands. This was a trio actually, in Nigeria, who was sentenced quite recently. What about countries like China? Well, even the US and Europe, historically, who've colonized others, who are on a quest to take over other nations' resources by indebting countries with low GDP, offering them undeniable loans, only to later bring them under subservience and in servitude, and taking over state assets. Nations taking over other nations are things that we have seen because they want to exact them of their resources, because of covetousness, because of greed, wanting to take over the resources of other countries. And we've also seen old men in politics making decisions out of greed that cause wars where young people die on front lines of armed conflict. And all of these are just but a few examples of the proceeds of greed and longings, lusting, the desire, the pursuit for wealth, for money, whether on an individual or societal level. Let's just check out this video over here, quite a short one, by Pastor Vodi Bakam. Let's hear him quickly. Let's get a dose of some Vodi.
A great way to see this picture is to think about the love that a man is commanded to have for his wife. Husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. There's a love that husbands are called to give exclusively to their wives. And the moment you turn that love onto another, you are guilty of idolatry. It's the same point here. The moment you turn that love that we are called to have for God, that love that has been shed abroad in our hearts, the minute you turn that to the world out of which you were saved, that minute you are communicating the fact that you do not have the love of God or love for God.
And amen. And that was Pastor Vodi. And over there, he's speaking so strongly. You can get the video. He speaks so strongly about love for the world. And he makes distinctions between three kinds of world, or the application of the term world in three various ways. That he makes a difference between the world within a natural sense, that is the cosmos or the cosimo, the world that God has loved, and that is people, that's a different kind of world. And the other usage or application is, of course, the one that we are speaking into the world, as given in the term, the Latin mundus. That is love for the material things of this world, love for this sinful realm. And so you can get the video and watch it for yourself. And over here, Paul, the apostle, writes to Timothy, young Timothy, in his first letter to Timothy in the 6th chapter and the 9th verse. In fact, from the 8th to the 9th. And this is what Paul says, "But those who crave to be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish, useless, godless, and hurtful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction and miserable perishing. For the love of money is a root of all evils. It is through this craving that some have been led astray and have wandered from the faith and pierced themselves through with many acute mental pangs." And the destructive impact of the desire for riches, the pursuit for riches and worldliness, is not only one that has proven its evidential destruction only to Christians, but also even to the world. And obviously over here, Paul the apostle is writing to young Timothy, who is a Christian and who is a leader, and whom he has left to manage the church. But as he writes to him about false teachers and the love of money, this cannot only be confined to those who are teachers, as I've mentioned before, those who are in a leadership position in the church. And as I've mentioned, the evidential destructive nature of the love of money is not only quite prevalent to the Christian, but also to those who are non-Christian. It is a very destructive thing. Let's move on together to the book of James chapter 4, the 13th to the 14th verse. Over here, I've titled this one, "Fixing Attention on a Money-Orient Moral." So, fixing your attention on a money-driven tomorrow is so boastful and ignorant of God. People who always think about tomorrow with the sense of gaining in some way, having lucrative gains, but thinking God away and not thinking about the providence of God and not thinking about the supremacy and preeminence of God and his involvement in our riches, is so boastful. Now, this is what James says. He says, "Come now, you who say, tomorrow or today or tomorrow, we will go into such and such a city and spend a year there and carry on our business and make money." And then he says in verse 14, "Yet you do not know the least thing about what may happen tomorrow. What is the nature of your life? You who are really but a wisp of vapor, a puff of smoke, a mist that is visible for a while, a little while, and then disappears into thin air." Now, people have a tendency to boast about tomorrow while chasing money. People have a tendency that whilst they're at the rat race of gaining the next million, of increasing wealth, they forget about God. They have no regard for God. The philosopher in Ecclesiastes says that all of this is vanity of vanities. We can take nothing out of this world. And you have heard it said that in this life, it's all about getting rich or die trying. And the one who has the most toys at the end of the road is the winner. But that is foolishness. vanity of vanities, whilst chasing the elusive nature of wealth and money, this deceptive thing, we think God away and we forget all about God and we boast. The last passage of scripture, 1 John chapter 2, the 15th to the 16th verse, and I've titled this one, Because You Loved the World and Its Worldliness. Now verse 15, it reads, Do not love or cherish the world or the things that are in or that are in the world. If anyone loves the world, love for the Father is not in him. For all that is in the world, the lust of the flesh, craving for sensual gratification, and the lust of the eyes, greedy longings of the mind, and the pride of life, assurance in one's own resources or in the stability of earthly things. These do not come from the Father, but are of the world itself. Now, many people think that in worldly resources, making an investment here, making an investment there, aggressive spending or aggressive investments in trying to acquire things, in trying to build security and wealth. Many people think that in this way, they would have secured themselves for the future. But you can ask many CEOs, many people who have been rich in the past, and some of those who are currently rich today, many who have lost billions, many who have even lost their businesses because of business models that have been rendered effete, obsolete overnight, that you can never find security in this world. Security is in God. You may get that job that you've always been wishing to get. You may get that promotion that you've always been wishing to get. But all of these things are elusive. If you are going to think that your riches will provide security to you, then you are highly delusional. You are eluded. And you are vulnerable and naked. It is God who offers security. And let me bring it to a close. Contentment is a flower of heaven. It must be cultivated because it does not come naturally in us. And these are the words of Charles Spurgeon. And may God's name be praised. I'll see you next time.